Meet David. David makes his living composing music for the movies. Up until a few years ago, David had nothing more to do with a computer than using the MIDI interface to his keyboards and his synthesizers. But in this world of tomorrow, David's life has changed. What's different? Computing is different. And because of that, the art of composing has changed as well. David is a non-programmer, or at least he was. In fact, he's become something of a hacker, although he still thinks of himself as a musician. From his point of view, changing pieces of his MIDI software is just like plugging and unplugging pieces of equipment. But from the system's point of view, what he's doing is programming. This new computing environment has permeated all aspects of David's life, from the way he manages his money to the way he collaborates with his fellow musicians. Working across networks makes it as easy for David to play a duet with someone across the country as it is across the room. As a result, David has become part of an international community of networked musicians. What we'd like to show you in this video are the characteristics of the global desktop of the future that will make these changes possible. As more and more people become networked through computers, customizing and controlling the environment needs to be easier. These four characteristics of the global desktop will make possible a visual environment for programming by composition, a key to making programming accessible to non-programmers. Let's begin with pluggable software components, which provide a familiar paradigm. This is David's desktop. Among the other icons, it contains a video phone, a MIDI system in which David composes and plays music, and a mailbox which connects him to the outside world. The mailbox has just received a letter which David retrieves and reads.
Hi David, just got this new transposer and wanted to show it to you. Check it out and let me know what you think. Dawn.
Notes in the global desktop can contain more than just simple messages. They can also contain the modules and plugs that let us connect people together across hardware platforms and across networks. All David has to do to get access to Dawn's new MIDI transposer is to drag it out of the note and onto his desktop. In order to try Dawn's transposer, David goes to his MIDI system and duplicates it so that he will be able to compare the performance of Dawn's component with the one he already uses in his existing system. Opening the duplicate system, David sees the user's view of his MIDI system. But before he can change anything, he must first look at the underlying view of this module. We call this the composition view of the MIDI system. Now all David has to do is to unplug the old transposer and replace it with the new one. Closing the system, David can now compare music played first on the old MIDI system and then on the new one. In an environment filled with reusable software components, finding appropriate ones for reuse is essential. In addition, the ability to reuse patterns of behavior through contracts will allow users like David to customize software more easily. David subscribes to an online magazine called Modern Music. Here on David's desktop, we see that the latest issue has just arrived. The lead article is about mix and match music, describing a new offering from Clip Media. To learn more about it, David opens the article. What he learns is that Clip Media is selling access to a database that gives musicians the ability to request music clips with characteristics that the musician can specify. Intrigued, David clicks on the button embedded in the article to request more information from the company. Sometime later, the company's order form arrives describing an introductory offer. For $30, David can have unlimited use of the music clip database for 30 days. Since the arrival of this offer on the desktop represents an opportunity to spend money, David's checkbook appears at the bottom. Once he decides to take them up on their offer, David asks his checkbook to emit a blank check. He drags the check onto the order form, causing the check to be filled out automatically. After verifying the information, David sends the order back to the company. The billing for the introductory offer is now authorized and will be automatically deducted from his checking account. Not long after, the database package arrives in David's mailbox, resulting in a new Clip Media icon on the desktop. Clicking on the icon opens up the user interface to the Mix and Match music system. We see a group of fields which contain the constraints that David can specify for clip retrieval. Below is a space for the answer to the query. Experimenting with some sample characteristics, David composes and sends off the query. This results in 653 music clips. While the interface allows him to scroll through the set of candidates, there is no structure to assist him in choosing any particular music clip. Remembering a query system he's used in the past, David decides to mix and match components of the old and the new systems. What he needs to understand is the kind of interface that can be used. Opening the user view of Mix and Match Music, David sees the connection to a remote database. In order to understand this connection, he opens the contract view, which shows what is being sent to the database and what is being returned. The output from the system is just a list of parameters with values. The input is a set of clip names and the sounds associated with each clip. Now the problem is to actually find that query interface he remembers. He knows that in order for it to work, it will have to use the same type of plug connection. Closing the contract view, David selects the plug and invokes an affinity browser on it. This comes up with the plug requirements automatically entered. Because he's looking for a query interface, David adds to that description, "and query." What the affinity browser returns is a list of query systems containing that type of connection. The affinity browser suggests that a part of the electronic public library called Reader Suggestion Service fits these requirements. At David's request, the browser emits the icon onto his desktop. Knowing he will need to unplug the music clip library before attaching a new interface, David unplugs it and closes up the old interface. David hasn't used the Reader Suggestion Service in a while, so he opens it and tries it out by clicking on Genre and having a dialog box appear. In the dialog box, David selects several types of books he likes. That should be enough to try the system out, so David sends the query, and a moment later is shown available library books matching his interests. When he selects one of the books shown in the graph, a detailed description of it appears. This kind of query system is just what David wants, so he decides to attach it to his Mix and Match music system. To do this, he opens it up and looks at his composition view. The system also has a plug to a remote database. After disconnecting the plug from the electronic public library, he reattaches it to the music clip library. Closing the composition view of this new Mix and Match music system, David takes a look at the new interface. Now he has a system that will allow him to access the music clip library in a way that makes him comfortable.
Hi David, how's it going? Listen, I was wondering, you know that movie I'm working on? Well, I was wondering whether you would have any time this afternoon to help me with the opening theme in Scene 5. This scene needs all the help it can get.
Sure thing, Dawn. When do you want to get together? I'm free right now, but I have to leave in a couple of hours.
Well, now would be okay. Why don't you give me your plug and we'll just get started right away?
Okay then. Hang on a second. Dawn? Okay, here it comes. You got it?
Oh, yeah, here it is. Alright, just a second while I plug you in. Okay, David, I think we're all set. Let me play you what I have so far.
So what have we seen? We've seen non-programmers routinely modifying applications to suit their own needs by plugging together software components. We've seen new kinds of tools to support working with and finding these components when needed. We've seen a visual language for composing applications. And we've seen support for collaboration through networked hardware and software platforms. From standalone computers to networks, from computer-oriented humans to human-oriented computing, the global desktop of the future promises powerful new resources for people at work and at play.